I sometimes read public domain books here on Leaves of Glen, and they were written a long time ago, so they're usually racist or sexist or bigoted. But in there somewhere and all that is a story, and that's why those stories are famous. Other times, I read works from independent authors, and they're delightfully not racist, but they might have adult language or adult situations. So that's your warning, but I'm sure you are grown up enough to handle it. Don't write to me complaining. Well, fun little Saturday night. I'm just going to sit here and read my friend's blog. Oh, no. Oh, god damn it, the walking and door sound effects are back. Ah, you little idiot, you're back. I thought I got you off my Halloween soundtrack. Welcome to the Glenn Reads Books to You mansion. It's a fun little bit where I pretend to live in a mansion and not just recording in my basement. This is where I read the hottest public domain books and short stories. Another Halloween episode. I lied last time. I said I'm only going to read Ambrose Bierce, but this time I'm going to read stories from a personal friend of mine who goes by the name of Baki. We're going to read The Little Oregon Book of Horrors by Baki. Want to learn a little bit about the author? Sure you do. I know him personally, so get ready for deep insight into this author, since I know him personally. His name is Baki. I'm not telling you his real name. He's born... No idea. I'm thinking 1972. Died? Oh, will friendship ever die? Want to learn a little bit? He says from his own website, I was born in the previous millennium. I am over half a century year old. I live in Oregon. I am mildly alarmed to be living in a place named the Ring of Fire, a place known for earthquakes, tsunamis, volcanoes, sneaker waves, tornadoes, landslides, wildfires, and a fortunate amount of bird droppings. That's a lot of horse shit. Usually I claim in the upper Midwest that I am like, oh, we got tornadoes, doesn't that suck? And everyone else is like, oh, what's it like to live with that? I'm like, oh, it's hell on earth. No, he's got that and a million other things. There are also large trees, which he has a link to, but I'm not sharing that with you. I believe love is usually the answer, and have a wife and had a cat who showed or shows me daily. I believe people should know how very special they are. I am a bit of an absurdist, and I work in the book mines, which is a library. Want to hear some fun facts from hell? This is the Halloween episode that I got from knowing him personally. I met him back in 1999 when we both worked at a company together in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And he was nice. I only worked there for like 6 months because it was like a .com thing from the early 2000s where they laid everyone off almost instantly. And we got to know each other a little bit, and then we both got laid off. And so he was going to move away, I think, to Wisconsin at the time, and with his wife, I think, or girlfriend. I don't know what she was. What the hell was she? And then they moved away. But before they moved away, he said, Glenn, I want you to learn about blogging. And I said, what's blogging? And he told me all about it. And he set me up with a thing called gray matter that was written in PHP. And so he set it all up for me. He sat at my home while I smoked cigarettes in front of him, because that's what you did back then. You smoked in your house. So I was smoking cigarettes going, well, what do you do with this? And he goes, you just write down your thoughts. And I go, what kind of thoughts? Who's going to read it? He goes, people read it. They'll find you. And they're going to find me? How do I work it? He showed me how to work it. Oh, he showed me how to make it look all pretty and all sorts of stuff. So that was the last time I saw him, and I have not seen him for 20 years. He moved from Wisconsin to Oregon. We still stayed in touch, and I don't know what the secret sauce is on how you stay friends with someone for 20 years over the internet when you never see their face. He even offered one time, saying, I think I might be in Minneapolis coming up soon. We should drop by and say hi. I and my wife can meet you and your wife. And I thought, oh, that'd be nice. And then I thought, but what if it ruins the friendship? The last time I remember him was the year 2000. He was wearing like an all-reflective suit with like big puffy high tops. He had beautiful beautiful long hair. And he kept saying things like "sup, dog" and things like that. And what would he be like now? And would we enjoy each other's company? Probably not. If he saw me face to face, he'd be like, "Jesus, you just look worse. Why is your face so puffy? How come your hands look like they're made of elephant skin?" And I'd say, "Shut up, Baki. You don't look any better than yourself. You're not wearing the sneakers and the reflective suit anymore. You used to be better than this." Oh, thank God for the grandfather clock. That means it's time for you to shut up and go downstairs to the Library of the Damned and read some stories of his to you. You like that music? I'm real proud of that music. It took me a long time to find license-free music that I could use for Halloween. Why don't you take a seat? I know there's a lot of pumpkins here. I've had them since October 1st, so they're starting to get real melty and kind of sweaty, and it's making the room really humid. But I think you can still enjoy yourself. Put this blanket over your legs, like a grandma's blanket, and just enjoy as I read to you the first of 3 short stories. 22. Jim stopped the truck where the forest road ended and the hiking trail started. Oh, there was a small hand-painted sign that read Trailhead. I gotta get a picture of that, said Ryan. He grabbed his phone, hopped out of his truck, and took a couple pics. You had to get a picture of that just for about everything so far, said Jim, smiling as he turned the ignition off and got out. They went to the back of the truck to grab their gear. I've been looking forward to this for years, said Ryan. Years? Come on, open up. Now you're practically vibrating, Jim replied, going through his jumble of keys. He eventually found the right one, unlocked the truck topper, and opened the tailgate. So exciting, Ryan shouted. He snatched his backpack from his truck and got it on record time. And he looked at Jim and laughed. Oregon, woo! Jim looked sidelong at his new friend while grabbing the extra water. You do have forests in Wisconsin. Yeah, but not like this. Ryan gripped his backpack straps, sighed, looked up. It was a beautiful summer day in the coastal range. The deep blue sky was framed by towering Sitka spruce, which I don't know what that is. I'm not going to look it up. That's just a type of tree, whose trunks were swallowed by the ferns that mobbed the forest floor. There wasn't a level piece of ground in sight. A cool breeze flew off the Pacific, and I can't believe it's freaking August. Do you know what the temp and humidity are in Wisconsin right now? 95. Is that the temp or the humidity? Asked Jim. Both. That, Jim said, grabbing his backpack and buckling it on, totally sucks. It's the reason number 327 why I wanted to move out here. Well, Jim said, grabbing a fanny pack and slamming the tailgate shut, now that you're finally here, let's get going on your first PNW hike. He clipped the fanny pack around his waist, shrugged his backpack a couple times to get it seated properly, and then gestured for Ryan to lead the way. The two of them spent the next couple hours hiking, gating and losing hundreds of feet in elevation. The views! Exclamation point. The drop-offs, said Ryan for the 100th time that day. The water breaks, finished Jim. He stopped, shrugged off his pack, grabbed 2 waters, and handed one to Ryan. Stupid beautiful, said Ryan, drinking. He wiped some sweat off his brow with his tea. This is all just so stupid beautiful. They found places to sit and drink their water while they enjoyed the quiet fisturism. God damn it. P-S-I-T-H-U-R-I-S-M. How do I say that? Baki. There's nothing. I got nothing. I just did the Amazon thing. Nothing. Fisturism of the wind blowing through the trees and the burble of the water flowing around the rocks in the nearby creek. After a bit, they got up and brushed themselves off. Ryan tossed his empty water bottle to Jim, who utterly and completely failed to catch it. Dude, said Ryan, walking toward him, picking up the water bottle. Fast hands! He tried to hand it to him, but Jim's hand wouldn't close around the bottle. Ryan looked at him more closely. All the blood had drained from Jim's face, and he was trembled ever so slightly. Jim, Hey, Jim! He waved his hands in front of Jim's face. To Jim! He snapped his fingers. Jim grabbed Ryan's hands so quickly he didn't see them move. Shh, 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 Jim managed through his gritted teeth. Ryan tried to catch Jim's eye. Hey, what's wrong? Do you have a medical condition? Jim let go of Ryan's hands and grabbed his shoulders. It felt like he was being gripped by two overly tightened vices, then spun him around. Ryan got as far as, come on, man, what's going on? Before he saw the mama bear and two cubs 30 feet away from them. Stopped on the trail where Ryan and Jim had come from. The bears stared at them. Shit, whispered Ryan. Yes, Jim whispered back. Shit. What are we going to do, man? Don't make any sudden moves. You'll startle them. Don't run. Their prey drive will kick in, and then they'll run faster than you raisin bull. You cannot outrun them. Don't try to climb a tree. They can climb trees almost as fast as they can run. Jesus Christ, then what the hell are we supposed to do? Well, don't worry. I brought a distraction. The bear cubs were getting curious and started toward the two hikers. Mama Bear was decidedly unhappy with the turn of events and began huffing. Okay, I'm going to grab something from my fanny pack. Then we have to rush toward the bears, making ourselves as big as we can while yelling at the top of our lungs. That, said Ryan, does not sound like it should be Plan A. He felt Jim remove his hands from his shoulders. He heard a zipper being opened slowly. He heard a snick followed by Jim mumbling something that sounded like, not again. And he heard another snick, then risked a look back. Jim was holding a revolver. You gonna shoot him? Asked Ryan. You can't just shoot him. I would never shoot a bear, responded Jim. Besides, this is just a little .22. It just tick him off. So why? All right, on the count of 3, we're going to rush the bears. But 1, are you sure this does it 2? I don't know if I can. Remember, make yourself big and loud. Okay, whimpered Ryan. The cubs continued to make their way around toward the hikers. Mama Bear started pounding her front paws on the ground and clacking her teeth between huffs. 3, shouted Jim. They roared. They threw their arms out and flapped them like he was trying to fly. Oh, he hopped like a lemur toward the bears and screamed, Go away, bears! Go away, scary bears! The cubs ran back toward their mother. Mama Bear's lower lip protruded and her ears flattened. Ryan shouted, I think it's working! And he glanced back at Jim, who was pointing the gun at his leg. Ryan stopped his flapping, hopping, yelling advance, and through his confusion said, What? That was really something, said Jim. His face broke into agony, his eyes wide and unblinking. His voice broke. I'm so sorry, he whispered, and he pulled the trigger. Ryan heard a pop and felt a burning sting in his calf. He collapsed, grabbing his calf and started screaming. Mama Bear charged. Jim stood still for a moment and watched, then turned and ran for all he was worth. Ryan felt an immense pressure, first on his back and then on his right shoulder. Huh, he thought, just like having wisdom teeth pulled. All pressure, no pain. He was violently jerked around, then dropped. He felt lightheaded, confused, and he was annoyed by a high-pitched wailing. Then astonished to discover that he was the one making it. All his vision blurred and then cleared, and he saw his arm laying on the trail a couple feet away. That, he wheezed, spitting up foamy blood bubbles, is not right. He wished for his vision to blur again. He felt more pressure on his back and then heard cracking and crunching. Ah, he thought while passing out, there's the pain. Mama Bear sniffed around the unconscious Ryan, then gathered up her cubs and headed down the trail the way they'd come. Ryan came in to see the bears round in a bend in the trail and disappear from sight. Who knew bear butts were furry? He thought. Furry bear butts. Furry bear butts. Ryan started giggling, or at least he felt like giggling, but his crushed lungs would not allow him to breathe the breath to do it. So he just convulsed for a moment. Furry bear butts! He tried getting up, but he couldn't move his arms or legs. He couldn't can't move my arm. Sorry, I fucked that up. Can't move my other arm either, he thought, which caused more convulsions. His vision started tunneling, and he felt an infinitely increasing weariness and detachment. Oregon. Woo, he thought. Ryan had one final, overwhelming urge to live. All people from Wisconsin experience it when they're about to die. I'm never going to eat cheese again, he thought. His body and mind rebelled at such horrible and alien concept, but alas, not even the power of cheese was enough to save him. Oh, that was good. All right, why don't we dive into the next one? I got wood. "Freedom!" with a bunch of letters, yelled Nick, doing his best Mel Gibson and Braveheart impression. He raised his beer and then shotgunned it. Nick was drunk. He's pretty happy about it. "Freedom!" yelled Ted and the guys doing their best Mel Gibson and Braveheart impressions. They raised their beers and shotgunned them. They were drunk. They were pretty happy about it. Ted and the rest of the gang had dubbed themselves the Dirty Dozen for this long weekend on the Oregon coast. Their mission? Keep Nick as drunk and as happy as possible while celebrating the finalization of his divorce from his wife of 4.5 months. I love you guys, said Nick, deep into the lovely drunk portion of the evening. "Oh, we love you too," they shouted back. "What would I do without you?" Die. It was 11 p.m., and they had a bonfire raging at the Canyon Drive Beach Access number 46 in Lincoln City, Oregon. The sky was clear and the stars were bright. Lights from the commercial fishing vessels dotted the horizon. The ocean was in front of them, and the 100-foot-high grass and sand bluffs were behind them. A bracing 18-mile-per-hour wind from the north had miles of empty beach to do a run-up and made a bonfire dance. "Nick, wood." "Aye, aye, sir," said Nick, completely failing at his attempt to stand up and absolutely completely failing his attempt to salute. He had insisted on bringing the wood for the bonfire. He had also insisted on wearing his "I got wood" tee because, he was the guy who had brought the wood to the bonfire. The Dirty Dozen began chanting, "I got wood," as Nick stumbled his way to where the wood pile was supposed to be. But there was no wood. Looked around confused, and then turned to the fellas. "No wood?" The Dirty Dozen went silent for the first time that night. Then a lone voice began chanting, "No wood," and soon the rest took up cause. They rose from their folding seats and driftwood logs. "No wood, no wood." They started dancing around the fire. "No wood, no wood." They formed a conga line. Someone began chanting, "Get the wood." And the conga line shuffle step kicked its way into the parking lot. Cars were started and the search was on. Muffled "Get wood" cries were heard through acoustic auto glass all up and down Highway 101. 30 minutes later, failing to find firewood for any sale in Lincoln City at midnight on a Sunday, they headed back to their beachfront vacation rental. The Dirty Dozen climbed out of their cars, took off their shoes, and at 12:30 in the morning began clapping 24 pairs of shoes against each other, the house rental, and the driveway, in an attempt to get the sand out. After a few minutes of futile and loudly echoing thwacking at the vigorous behest of some of their temporarily awoken neighbors, they decided to concede defeat in their quest of drunken early morning shoe desanding and left them outside for the night. Also, left outside for the night? Nick, who had begun the sleepy drunk portion of the evening when the conga line started. He'd fallen asleep on a driftwood tree trunk by the bonfire. "Get wood," he mumbled between snorts. "Get wood." Nick tried very hard to wake up as little as possible when he felt the ground move beneath him. Earthquake, he thought before falling back asleep. When the ground moved beneath him again, he got annoyed. "Darla, make it stop," he whined, forgetting that he was no longer married to Darla, and that she did not in fact have a superpower that gave her control over earthquakes, nor, given the acrimony of the divorce, would she if she had. Nick rolled over and fell into something cold and wet. The good news was that that falling into the ocean surf was a surprisingly wonderful way to clear a sleepy, hungover head. The bad news, of course, was that your surroundings were 50-degree waters, the Pacific Ocean in the Oregon coast, at 3 in the morning. "Shit," he started. "Shit," he continued. "Shit," he concluded. Well, that seems as good a place as any to take a little break. Why don't we go down to the basement, huh? My creepy Halloween basement. It's not creepy. It's actually kind of nice down there. It's not weird that I'm asking you to go down to the basement. Let's just go down to the basement, and I will tell you about the latest upcoming books from Penguin Random House. I'll see you down there. I swear to God, the drip is just getting louder. I probably should try to fix that thing. Why don't we learn about the latest upcoming book from Penguin Random House while you sit in that chair underneath that naked light bulb, and I stand here underneath this naked light bulb. Not playing guitar this time, just gonna sit here. My basement, besides the water problem, is fine. It's comfortable. I got a couch over there. I got a TV with Google TV hooked up to it. I got a little coffee table. It's like a cool place where teens might hang out. As I tell you about Buried Lies, a novel by Stephen Tingle, which I was hoping was like Chuck Tingle's like real story name, but I guess it's not. It's just a person whose last name is Tingle. About Buried Lies, a former private detective with a penchant for trouble stumbles into a deadly conspiracy that puts him in the killer's crosshairs in this witty crime novel, perfect for fans of Timothy Halloran and Janet Ivanovich. I don't know who those are, but okay, former police officer turned private detective Davis Reed is taking refuge in the mountains of Caruso, North Carolina, after a run-in with a biker gang dealt him an unfavorable hand. When respected real estate agent Prentice Wells is killed by an errant golf ball, Davis has no reason to suspect that it wasn't an accident. But then a wealthy couple hires him to prove the death was murder. I read that wrong. Whatever, it's my show. And catch the killer. In desperate need of cash, Davis takes the job. While Davis investigates who had the motive to kill Prentice, Elizabeth Harper, an accountant who stirs butterflies in Davis' stomach, uncovers a tangled mess of shady real estate deals linked to Prentice's firm. As the case garners media attention, Davis must carefully navigate a minefield of secrets and lies. With the help of his friend Dale Johnson, a local deputy whose mood changes with the wind, and Dale's cousin Floppy, a mad genius motor mouth mechanic, Davis sets out to uncover a mystery that runs much deeper than he thinks. Praise for Buried Lies from Kirkus Reviews. It's a colorful crime yarn that goes down easy. A red carpet crash says, a great novel. This is not one to be missed. So that's almost nothing. So this must suck. Buried Lies, a novel by Stephen Tingle. I wish it was Chuck Tingle. Hardcover, $31.99. You get it from Amazon. It's coming out October 15th. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, Bookshop.org, Hudson Booksellers, Powell's, Target, and you'll probably find this on the floor, face down, because someone used it to stand on top of it to reach a better book at Walmart. Well, why don't we go back upstairs and read the rest of these stories. Okay, welcome back to the library. I hope you get yourself settled here in my humid room. Let's continue reading the story. Where do we leave off? The guy slipping into the ocean. He was dragged down the beach as the seawater around him raced back toward the ocean. He dug his hands into the sand, but it didn't help much. When he hit the surf coming the other way, he screamed in surprise at the cold, which he regretted almost immediately as the ocean water sand flooded his mouth. The water underneath him shifted back up to the beach, and coughing and sputtering, he managed to drag himself a couple feet forward toward the dead bonfire before his comfy sleep driftwood tree trunk. All 3 tons of it was pushed up over his right foot and up into his right leg and onto his lower back, pinning him face down in the sand. Water swirled around him. He panicked, trying to remember if it was 3 inches or 6 inches of water that a person could drown in. Nick was just able to arch his back enough to keep his head above it all. But no matter how hard he tried, he could not move himself out from under the driftwood. As the water flowed toward the ocean again, the tree trunk was pulled down over his right leg, and he felt the horrible popping of his right knee dislocating. Jesus. Before he could think not to, he cried out and immediately choked on seawater and sand again. This is so fucking stupid, he thought to himself as he gagged. The surf calmed, and he braced himself, waiting for the next wave to hit him. But none came. Oh, thank God, he thought. He tried pushing it off with his right leg, but only got bright lightning bolts of pain shooting all over his body from his knee for his efforts. Check, he thought, after the pain dialed down to a 9 on the doctor's office smiley card pain scale. Don't push off with the right leg. He took a moment to gather his strength and began slowly crawling up the beach, making sure to only use his arms and his left leg. A wave sideswiped him. Oh, he's pushed 20 feet to his right, dragged over and this is really detailed, crushed against the basalt rock, laid bare over his ever-shifting sands. The skin was scraped raw. He bled from dozens of wounds. The water receded. He tried crawling away from the ocean, but he couldn't bear the pain of dragging himself over the volcanic rock. Another wave came, this one straight up the beach. It lifted him up over the rock and onto the sand. He managed to turn himself over onto his back. Through the lower part of his injured leg remained, though I fucked that up. The lower part of his injured leg remained bent the wrong way at 90-degree angle. The seawater flowed back down the beach. His injured leg went with the flow. It was pulled toward the ocean. It was just kind of wave back and forth as the surf rushed around it. Luckily, the surf left the rest of him where he was, except for the terrible chorus of pain from the stinging of seawater on his wounds and the electric pain of his dislocated knee. He was completely numb with cold, and he shivered violently. Nick saw a wave heading toward him. He tried using its momentum to move further up the beach, but the water brought the driftwood with it, and it floated up over his legs, bending the injured one back onto itself, and landed on his chest, pinning him where he lay. The weight of it was suffocating. The water rushed around him, and it lifted the tree trunk just enough for him to breathe. But then the water went over his head, and he began drowning. The water receded down the beach, leaving the full weight of the driftwood on his chest, and he began suffocating once again. Well, the cycle continued over and over. The weight of the tree trunk suffocated him, and then the depth of the surf drowned him, and he had only a few brief seconds between each interval to try and breathe. When he was suffocating, all he could think of to do was to try and push driftwood off. When he was drowning, all he could think of to do was to get his head above water. Drown, suffocate, drown, suffocate, drown, suffocate. And with each cycle, his strength decreased. With each cycle, his terror increased. He eventually stopped shivering, he eventually began convulsing, and he eventually stopped breathing. It took Nick 17 minutes to die. The Dirty Dozen woke up to someone pounding on the glass door of the back deck, the one overlooking the ocean. "Go away!" Ted tried to yell, but all that came out was an enormous belch. He immediately scrunched his nose and waved his hand in front of his face. "Oh, God, that's horrible. Smells like something died." "I can smell it all the way over here," said one of the Dirty Dozen. "Nocturnal emanation most foul," said another. "Totally," someone chimed in. "What'd you have for dinner? Smells like dead fish." "I drank my dinner," replied Ted. Then to the person outside, "Stop pounding on the door." The pounding stopped. Ted couldn't see much on the balcony. It was too dark. A thick, swiftly moving fog blotted out the moon and the stars. Ted saw the shadow of a person outside shift to his left. Then a giant driftwood tree trunk came hurtling through the glass door, shattering it, and the neighboring windows. The stench of wet death rolled over them like a tsunami. The Dirty Dozen froze in place. The person stepped into the vacation rental, and they dragged their right leg. They wore a torn, soaked-through tee with "I got wood" printed on it. "What would I do without you guys?" Nick gargled. Oh, well, there you go. Last story of the night, sliding. "You really think Prince was better than Nirvana?" asked Hector, slowing his clapped-out emerald green 1972 Buick Riviera as he navigated another curve up the mountain on an old scenic Highway 101 out of Otis, Oregon on a stormy January day. He glanced at Paul, who grinned and said, "Fool! You fell victim to one of the classic blunders. The most famous is never get involved in a land war in Asia, but only slightly less well known as this. Never go against a Minneapolitan." That's not what we call ourselves, but that's cute that you think we do. "You never grew up here. When Prince is on the line." Hector stopped the car in the middle of the road, threw it in park, and looked at Paul. Inconceivable. You keep using that word. I do not think it means what you think it means. They laughed. Rain tapped on the dance of the car, and the trees in the forest around them swayed wildly as they creaked, clacked, and clacked from the storm blowing off of the Pacific. Hector grabbed Paul's hand and squeezed. I'm so glad you finally made it out here. Paul squeezed back. Oh, yeah, you betcha. That's not how we really talk in Minnesota. More laughter. Careful, Hector said. Your Minnesota is showing. Ope. Yeah, that's okay. Yeah. Oofda. That's not how we talk. They giggled. The giggles turned to smiles, and the smiles fueled the storm of emotions between them. They kissed. After a moment, Paul pulled away. Not that I'm not having a wonderful time, he said, nodding toward the road in front of them, but we are stopped in the middle of the road. Hector looked out the road through the rain-streaked windshield, then turned to look out at the road through the rain-streaked rear window. He looked at Paul. Do you realize we have not yet passed a single soul since we started driving up the mountain? Paul conceded the point. All right, Hector said. Just a little further to the scenic lookout. Let's just see how fast Jolly Green can get us there. He threw it in drive, stomped the accelerator, and Jolly Green sputtered. Lurched forward a couple feet, then died. Not a word, said Hector, cranking the ignition, stomping on the gas pedal. You say a bad word about Jolly Green right now, and he'll never start for us. I'm serious. You can disrespect Nirvana, said Hector, pointing a finger at Paul. You can be irreparably hoodwinked by that funky Minneapolis sound. I never thought of it that way, but okay, that's valid. But you must never utter a disparaging word against Jolly Green. Paul patted Jolly Green's glove box and looked sidelong at Hector. Irreparably hoodwinked by that funky Minneapolis sound? If the raspberry beret fits. Paul mimicked locking his lips and tossing away the key. There was a huge explosive crack in a tree branch. The size of a small boat fell directly in front of them. The ground shook when it landed. The guys watched wide-eyed as it rolled off to the side of the road and down the hill. What the fuck, said Paul. Yep, okay, said Hector. He got the Jolly Green running again and floored it. No sputtering and dying this time. The rear tires spun on the wet dirt, hard pack, and then found purchase. Jolly Green roared up the mountain. Hold tight, said Hector. We used to do this in high school. The analog speedometer swung wildly back and forth as Hector wrestled with the steering wheel. The rear of the car bounced off the ground as it hit roots and potholes. You're drifting up the mountain, shouted Paul, grabbing the oh-shit grip of the glove compartment. Technically, we're power gliding, replied Hector, hauling the steering wheel hard clockwise. I'm trying to wait until the apex of the turn to get the Jolly Green sideways. He spun the steering wheel back clockwise and winked at Paul. Keeps the speed up better. Small twigs fell around them. The clacking of the trees could be heard even over the roar of the engine. Occasionally, a bigger branch would fall near them. The heavens opened. Rain so heavy the wipers couldn't keep up. Oh, there was a giant thud, and the car jumped about 5 feet to the left. Hector gritted his teeth as he fought to keep the car on the road. Almost, he said, swinging the rear of the car wildly around the final curve. There! The rain let up as they broke the cover of the forest. Hector accelerated up the final straight, and when they got to the small parking lot of the scenic overlook, they fish-tailed and slid to a stop, facing the way that they'd just come. Hector turned off the car. The rain stopped. They sat, staring forward, breathing heavily and fogging up the windshield. Paul reached out his hand to Hector, who gripped it tightly. That, exclamation point, was, exclamation point, epic, said Paul, turning to Hector, a huge grin lighting up his face. Hector turned to Paul, smiled anxiously, and said, fuck. He opened his door and stepped out, his legs a bit wobbly from the ride. Paul tried to open his door but couldn't budge it. He slid along the green vinyl bench seat that followed Hector out to the driver's side. They held hands as they walked round the car to the passenger side door. There was a 6-inch deep, 8-foot-long dent running the length of the rear quarter panel and passenger side door. That, Hector said, shaking his head, is not going to buff out. Paul snorted. They giggled. They laughed, and then they laughed harder, hysterically, coughing and choking, trying to catch their breath. Oh, Paul recovered first and walked to the edge of the scenic overlook. The sun broke behind them, and a rainbow filled the valley below. The rainbow is a little on the nose, said Paul as Hector came over and put his arm around him. But what of you? Totally worth it. Easy for you to say, said Hector. It's not your car. Paul snorted again. Looks like it isn't over, said Hector, pointing to the far end of the valley where the clouds and the fog were moving fast off the ocean. And they could see a band of rain racing toward them. We better get out of here. And they ran to the car. Paul slid in first. Hector followed. Hector stuck the keys in the ignition and twisted. Nothing happened. Come on, Jolly Green. And it was upon them. Rainwater cascaded down Jolly Green's windows, obscuring everything except for the dark gray light of the storm. The sound of the rainfall bounced off the roof so loudly it hurt their ears. After an agonizing couple of moments, the initial onslaught of the storm softened to a more normal tempo and decibel. I want to say disciple. It's decibel. It's my show. Fuck out. They looked at each other and smiled with relief. Well, that was, Hector started. Then they both doubled over in pain. Their stomachs flipped. Their ears popped. A feeling of nausea rolled over them. They looked around in confusion until they saw what looked like half the mountain in front of them sliding into the valley below. Paul looked at Hector, eyes wide. Landslide, Hector said. No shit, said Paul, smiling weakly. Was that infrasound? I think, Hector began. Then another wave of nausea hit them, followed quickly by a 30-foot tree landing on the hood of the car. They screamed as the mountain above slid into them. Jolly Green briefly rode on top of the landslide, rolling over and over, but all too soon the landslide was around them, then over them. Hector and Paul were tossed around the interior of the car in darkness. The windows cracked and broke. The car began folding in on itself. Mud, rock, and water surged inside. Jolly Green came to rest 300 feet down the mountain, buried under 20 feet of compacted mountainslide. Paul had died almost immediately, his neck broken during the first moments of the car flipping on top of the mudslide. He had ragdolled around the interior of the car until he landed on Hector, who managed to hold his lifeless body tightly. Then, when Jolly Green came to rest, Hector was still alive, his body crushed and broken, unable to move in the densely packed mountainside inside the car. Oh, he was slowly asphyxiating, desperately trying to breathe as mud forced itself down his trachea and into his lungs. Jesus, I have a tough time reading this in a funny voice. He managed to say Paul one last time before feeling only pain and fear and darkness than nothing at all. Well, that's the end of that story. I feel like an asshole reading this in a kooky voice. Why don't we go down to the smoking room and review what the hell we just read? Well, there you are. Why don't you get yourself seated? There, you can see on the coffee table, we have a baboon's skull. And if you open the top cranium of that skull, you'll find it's filled with cigarettes. Which, I love cigarettes. Oh, God, they're fantastic. There's my wife's. The birds turned into crows. Anyways, what do we learn from what we read tonight? The first story, 22, you got two friends, they go hiking, and they with Jim and Ryan, and they run into a bear with her little cubs. So, of course, she's protective about them. Jim, with the most experience, hanging out in the woods, decides to shoot Ryan in the leg and leave him there as food. I love that he's a good writer. Maybe that's the reason why I'm friends with him for 20 years, because I enjoy reading his stuff. He's a good writer. I love that he has Ryan narrating the entire time he's being killed with, like, that's not good, or as he's watching the bear walk away, fairy bear butts, and that kind of thing, or Oregon woo. And it's a long, drawn-out death scene, which I kind of liked about it. He just has him just, like, write about him dying for kind of a long time. All the details about being attacked by a bear. Your arm being separated, like, oh, there's my arm over there, and that kind of thing. And then also, like, trying to kind of revive yourself and, like, okay, no, I don't have to die right now. And then finding out, like, you're missing a leg and arms and you can't really go anywhere. And then promising you won't eat cheese because he's from Wisconsin. So that was pretty good. I did notice that when Jim was opening up his fanny pack, he says to himself, "Not again," which means this has probably happened before. He won't shoot a bear because he says that, "I'll never shoot a bear," but he will just shoot a person and then just run away. Both kind of funny, the way he writes the narration of the person dying, but also like not funny at the same time. So that's kind of what I like about it. Second story, I got wood. Nick just got divorced. He's only been married for 4.5 months, which is really specific. And then he's got Ted, who is the only person I found that was named out of the Dirty Dozen. And so Ted is the only person. So Nick is kind of getting really drunk, and then Ted goes, you got to get more wood. It's your job. This is your party, so get more wood. But they were buying wood, and they didn't buy enough wood for this big bonfire that they built. So Nick is, kind of drunk, kind of passes out. Ted and the rest of the Dirty Dozen, they decided to go out and like hunt for more wood, but they couldn't find any. So they go back home, and they just kind of pass out in bed. And then, of course, Nick... again, with this, pretty amazing, long, drawn-out dying scene. A lot of details about what it's like to be, like, engulfed in water and then sand and then having the driftwood get on your leg and break your leg. But I kind of like it. It's kind of like my previous stories from Ambrose Bierce, where it's a little bit of a slice of life with a lot of detail around the worst part, and then just kind of leaves off on that. Well... this story doesn't just leave off on him dying. This story leaves off on him coming back from the dead to basically confront Ted, the one-name person of the Gang of 12, to just say, "What would I do without you?" Which harkens back to the beginning of the story when he's all drunk. He's like, "What would I do without you guys?" And then Ted goes, "You'd die." So there you go. That's a nice little bow on top. The third story, Sliding, is the most heartbreaking one. It's terrible. It's terrible to read. There's a lot of references to Minneapolis and Oregon, Seattle, whatever. Is it Seattle, Washington? No, Oregon, Portland, whatever. They talk about Nirvana versus Prince, which is both geniuses in their own arenas. But anyways, I made notes such as Minneapolitan. It's not really a phrase we call ourselves, but it was cute that he made that up. He probably heard that before. I bet you if you get outside of Minneapolis, people might make up phrases like that, but we don't call ourselves that. A lot of you betchas, which is, people do say that, but they're all like boomers. Ope, he did throw an ope. Ope is something we do actually still say. I catch myself saying it all the time at Target when I'm walking around with my cart and I bump into somebody and go, "Oh, didn't see you there." But otherwise, oofta is another one. That's a kind of a post-war kind of boomer thing. But beyond those small critiques of mine, he did a really good job showing these people, these two guys who are apparently in love because they're holding hands, but like didn't overdo it or anything. It's very like, it's kind of subtle. You catch the hand holding, you catch how they're laughing and they're having a good time and they're in their car and everything. And then it just descends into chaos as they happen to be a part of a landslide, which is a great job showing them being happy and also tense with the storm that's going on. But then on the same point, they just, like, nature doesn't care if you're in love, fuck you. It just destroyed both of them. And that was the end of the story. So I guess I gotta say, like, I think he's, like, I've read other stuff of his and I think he's a really good writer. He does, like, a really good job with, like, details. Like when the Gang of 12 or whatever came back from hunting down wood for the fire, there was a whole thing about them clapping their shoes together, trying to get the sand out of their shoes because he knows the area and he knows what it's like. There's sand getting in your shoes. So it's waking up the neighbors and stuff, so they kind of just like left them off to the side after a while. Oh my God, the repetitive struggle of being sucked into the sea with all the details around having your legs broken. My God. And then also what you'd experience being attacked by a bear. The idea of like the bear attacking your back and the crunching that's going on. And then also, of course, being engulfed in a landslide. And it just, the person you're with, their neck breaks and their head's bobbling around until it lands in your lap. There's a lot of visual imagery there that sticks with you when you finish reading it. So, yes, Baki did a really good job writing a bunch of horror stories specific to an area, and I appreciate his upper Midwest references, even though they're not Minneapolitan. It's not a real thing. Anyways, so I think in my next episode, I'm going to read some more and then wrap up my Halloween with that. So thanks for listening. And with that, I'm done.
Well, it appears you found me in the part of the podcast I hate the most, where I tell you all about the places on the internet where you can find me. You can tell I hate this because of the sound effects making it sound like a stormy night in the drawing room of the damned. Now, there's that. Are you cool? I like cool people. It's the reason why I got involved in this business to begin with, just to meet cool people, not losers. So if you're cool, feel free to go over to my website, nuzzlehouse.com. But if you go there, you get to hear some of the other stuff that I and my wife work on, like the Radio Mystery Theater show, where we try to recreate the same show that used to be on in the 70s, but they don't make any episodes anymore. So we make our own, and we just steal all their commercials. And also, just in the curious mind, we made a Christmas album. If you go to our link tree, you can see that we made a Christmas album. It's the first thing we did after getting married, which I think everyone should do when they get married, is start talking about the Christmas album they're going to make. And we're working on a new show where we give relationship advice by reading paranormal smut. And since I think you might be cool, you can always just email me directly, glenn.nuzzles@gmail.com. But don't email if you're a nerdlinger or a dork. Now, back to business. I can't believe I drank all of them already. There's got to be one left.